that magnificent view from the 7 helicopter, a scene we've never seen before, side by side. He's going to have trouble braking here to let Moffat through again. Now he does, and Moffat from the outside will sweep around and take the checkered flag first for victory in the 1977 Hardy Ferodo 1000.
Mo's Mobiles is a great sponsor of V8Xtra. This week's Mo's Moment, Allan Moffat, that famous 1-2 at Bathurst in 1977. Larko, where were you in 1977?
Oh, mate, I riding a motocross bike around somewhere. Kid.
I was sitting in the fork of the tree at the top of the hill next to the Shell Tower watching this man pull off that historic victory. Our special guest on V8Xtra is Allan Moffat. Allan, great memories.
Thank you. Well, it was. Taking one car to Bathurst and getting qualified and finishing is an effort, as you know. To do that with two and to come 1-2 was really the thrill of my career.
Allan, I just want to touch on James, your young fellow. He's doing well now. I saw there on the weekend, or a couple of weekends ago at Sandown, win a couple of races, on pole by 0.4 of a second. What sort of things are you saying to him? I mean, these cars are very hard to drive now, hard to break through. I mean, you must be able to give him great advice from what you've achieved.
Well, I couldn't teach him how to drive the car, Mark, but I was strong on what to do with your mind about qualifying. And for, you know, he hasn't just arrived yesterday. He's done Utes, he's done Lotuses, he's done Carrera Cup, and he started to show that he wasn't frightened of what he had to do with the Carrera Cup cars. But I felt that he was never getting the best out of qualifying. And I had a fanatical approach. Oh, I shouldn't say that on television, should I? I had a very determined approach to qualifying day. I figured, what was the use of not having your car as perfect as possible? What was the use of not getting on the front row? Because tomorrow was going to be a hard day if you didn't have those things in place. And it is a mental task. Stop the fooling around, get the car right, and if it isn't right on the first lap of practice, come in and fiddle with it and keep going and keep going. And if you need any more track time, well, then you better find another car and get out there a week beforehand and do it that way. And I think that penny finally has dropped with the Falcon that he's driving at the moment.
Signs are there.
Yes.
Allan, one of the things that I mentioned earlier in the program was not only the fact that you brought all these famous motor cars to light for us, and, you know, we passionately revered these things, but one of the other things, and it probably doesn't get talked about as much because we tend to get swamped by all the numbers at the top of the chart on your CV, one of the other things that's notable for me are the number of different commercial partners that you brought to the sport that were different. I mean, you know, we see the oil companies, we see the tyre companies, we see the car companies, and they've traditionally been part and parcel of the business, but Coca-Cola, Brute 33, Federation Insurance, Pan Am Airlines, ANZ Bank, Synovus Vitamins. I mean, Rothmans. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people who traditionally hadn't been drawn into motorsport. So your commercial act was as strong as your competitive act.
Well, I wish that list had been a little bit shorter, which would have meant that some of them had stayed longer, but that was hard work behind the scenes, and you know what that's like. So I never forgot my door-to-door salesmanship, and truly the thing that was always most disappointing was the sponsor that just dropped you. And I won't go into any names or places, but it's hard to recover from that. And you might recall when rules changed, when CAMS dropped things on us after the Mazda program, I didn't have a car for a year. And fortunately, Pete Brock asked me over for coffee that year in '85, and I was back in business driving with him with great verve and delight, I might add. But the sponsorship is part of the act, which I even hate the word sponsorship. It's a partnership.
Yeah. One of the other things that's always intrigued me about the Allan Moffat racing story, which is a much bigger documentary than this program, was the way in which you finished. And you said this to me quite recently, and I thought it was rather poignant. In the way that you finished your racing career, I'll let you tell the story, but you closed the door, you got out of the car, you did what you had to do, and off you went. You tell it.
I retired the day we won the Fuji 500. When I say we, Klaus Niedwitz and I won in our ANZ Sierra. The Japanese didn't know what hit them after our last pit stop, and we went on to win the Fuji 500. That was the weekend of my 50th birthday, and from the time I was 40, I was prepared that I'm not going to be a 50-year-old race driver, and I stuck to that.
Did you see that, Neil? Here we are in 2009, still the ANZ Sierra. That's the professionalism, Allan, that you brought to the sport.
But I just like the way you put a nice full stop on the end of it. I mean, you did it winning, you did it at the highest international level, and you walked away and you haven't looked back.
I have looked back a little bit because truly the last 20 years have been more hard work to have a regular job than the race. The racing was never work.
Lyco tries
And
hard
it
not to
didn't
have
matter
a real job.
how many.
Do you ever look at the current cars and think, I wouldn't mind sneaking a lap, or no way?
Well, I probably wouldn't know how to drive them properly with a sequential drive. I'd be looking for the gear lever, and then when I looked down on the dash and there was no tacho and certainly no oil pressure gauge, I'd be finished.
But just quickly, I wanted to ask you that, Alan, when you see the cars, how they don't move around as much as they did in your era, say, I mean, is there an argument you think our cars are a little accurate to drive? I mean, it seems hard for a young guy to break through now.
I think it is hard for all the young fellows getting to grips with it, and there is a definite technique, and if you look at all the people that have been introduced through that are just the drivers, have nothing to do with the teams, quite a number of them don't do it automatically, that's for sure. It takes a number of miles to get under, and if I had one, if I can recommend or if I can pat James on the back, is that he's done very well in a very short period of time in that car.
Adapting to the car,
Yes.
without doubt.
Unfortunately, time zaps by. We're going to get you back for our final segment in a moment. But before we go off to the break, of course, email is a very big part of the show. We get lots of it each week from our passionate motorsporting viewers. We've got a ripper in from Julie Norton this week, and it's a question that we all get asked quite a bit from time to time. Mo's Mailbags question of the week: why are V8 engines 5 litres in capacity, that is in the racing cars, and not 5.7 like some of their road counterparts? Well, Julie, the answer to that question is that both the Ford and the Holden engine are derived from a block that comes in both cases from the US. They've been 5 litre V8 since the category got started the back end of 1992, and then we kind of ratified it in 93 and it changed name in 1997. And of course, across both brands of cars in their road car fleets, they're all varying capacities. So in the interests of parity and evenness, all the cars have 5 litres in engine capacity. So you win Mo's Mobile Pack this week, and here it is, the Nokia E63 mobile phone. You're also going to be able to jump onto the network with 3 Mobile with your prepaid starter pack and chat away to your friends and ask a whole lot more V8 supercar questions. Check out the website for store details near you. Mo's Mobile. We're going to take a break on V8Xtra. When we come back, we'll wrap up. Our special guest is Allan Moffat.
You there, Pete?
This is my old friend Allan Moffat on the phone there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you said to me, how was I going to go with my carburetor? And unfortunately, your fuel injection has outlasted me.
yeah. Gee, Al, you got a picture in the car there at all?
I can see you. You're looking a bit relaxed.
Well, that corner there, I just went through there. It's about 280k, absolutely flat. So it's not bad, but I've got no second gear, Al. I'm having to hold it second.
Well,
So-
actually, I thought for a minute it was Doug Mulray in the car, but now that I see your mobile sign there, oh, that was a nice little one.
That's all right.
Easy on that gearbox, Froggy.
Yeah, I know. Look what I'm doing. I'll show you. I'm holding it in there like that,
Yeah.
steering one-handed, and then booting it. But it's very difficult because my wrist is getting sore. But as Alan Jones was saying, we don't want to be complaining too much about the physical effort of driving a racing car. We might be compared to certain overseas drivers.
Well, listen, mate, you always were good with one hand, so stay with it.
Hey, Al, you got it.
What was going through his mind? How could he imagine and talk all those words and drive the car at full speed around Bathurst?
Fantastic, isn't it?
What a wonder.
Great images there of our great friend, the late Peter Brock, and having a two-way chat with you, Alan. And there's just, I mean, there's so many memories that relate to those endurance races, especially at Bathurst. I've got a million questions to ask you in absolutely no time. One of the things I quickly want to ask you, though, is James got an endurance drive jacked up in the main game for Phillip Island and Bathurst?
He's standing by. We'll know. Stand by. We'll know. You'll know by the week, the next race.
Okay.
So
right.
now, if that happens, is there half a chance we may see you and Larry Perkins side by side on the pit wall there?
I'm like you. I don't have a manicurist that can handle my nail-biting habits, so I think I'll be watching it on television. Thank you. I got revved up enough at Sandown. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, we'll keep a close eye on that. You've got to let us know if he does pull that drive together. And the other thing I noticed was the 999 on his car. Any relationship to the old number 9 days for you?
This was his doing, and I thought I was just in sync with 888. Why not be one number ahead of 888? You know, 8, 9. That looked good to me.
Can you promise to come back and see us again sometime?
I'll be delighted.
Allan Moffat, thank you very much for being with us today on V8Xtra.
Good night, mate.
Thanks, mate. Pleasure to see you. And thanks also to Mark Larkham. Great to